Good evening and welcome to Illinois Law. This is a program sponsored by the Illinois State Bar Association. My name is Gilda Hudson Winfield and I'll be your moderator this evening. Our topic this evening will be the psychology of scams, the schemes that are played against innocent people and why it happens. We've assembled a panel of experts that work exclusively in this area. They are Eric Salcedo. Eric is the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, and Eric has been with the office for 8 years and speaks about consumer fraud and internet safety. Katie Walsh is the Director of Senior Services at the Cook County Sheriff's Office. She's been there since 1996. Katie coordinates the Senior Citizen Law Enforcement Academy and the Sheriff's Cell Phone for Seniors program. She assists with all community outreach and crime prevention for seniors through her role on the Suburban Elder Justice Coalition. Jim Henley is a detective sergeant for the Cook County Sheriff's Police Department. Jim is in charge of financial crimes and senior financial exploitation. Jim has been in law enforcement for 25 years. Welcome, panelists.
Thank you.
So, the psychology of scams. Apparently there are many scams out there now. I don't know if it's because of the economy or whatever, but there are many schemes that are designed to lure people away from their money. How does it work? Why does it work? What is the psychology of the scam?
Well, just the basic psychology of it is, say somebody's at your front door and you hear just a simple knock. Okay, you would walk to your front door and that would be it. But just imagine you take that knock and now make it a rapid fire knock. All of a sudden your mentality changes where something's wrong, you know, something's going on. So that already preps you as you're walking to the door for the scam artist. So that when he immediately says, oh, my car's broken down on the street, my friend's injured and he's bleeding to death, I need to use your phone. He's already got you hyped up before you even open up the door for him. So it puts it, they're very good at what they do. The psychological part that they play on is mostly going to be fear, it's going to be trust, and then for some cases of some of these scams that we talked about, it's going to be greed by the victim. You know, that little, yeah, you've won the lottery, all it's going to do is take a little money from you to win a larger amount of money. But they're very good at what they do. They're extremely good. And some of these people haven't even been to college and have barely finished high school, but yet they're able to run all these scams.
And it's emotions. We all have emotions, and people can play on those emotions, and what those con men and hucksters are doing is playing on the ones that are going to let our defenses down, make us put our guard down, and make us a quick decision. And usually it is to give up your personal information, to give up your money, to give up your safety. And it's just, they're playing with your emotions, and you have to always be ready with a plan to stop yourself from becoming a victim.
Well, Jim, you brought up a good point that there are certain just emotional factors that play into these scams. Let's talk about some of those emotions. You mentioned fear, loneliness, age. Let's talk about just the fear factor.
What
happens there?
Some of the scams that we've mentioned on some of the other shows, say the utility scam, they come to your house and say that down the block, you know, a transformer's blown up, you know, and this could probably cause damage to your house, and if your electrical panel was to catch on fire, you'd be burned alive. So you end up with that fear of safety, fear for your house, or fear for others. But here, you know, let me take you downstairs and we'll solve your problem immediately. So you end up with that, where they've taken that fear factor, implied it into you, but now all of a sudden they're the safety net. They're going to help you and get you downstairs, and they're going to show you what's going to take the place. Another one would be the plumbing scam. Your house could flood. Again, you know, we're back to this fear factor.
Yes.
The tree trimmer, the tree in your backyard looks like it's going to fall on your house. Mm-hmm. Come back here, let me show you. And I can take care of it for you. So sometimes it turns into a door-to-door sales pitch. Where
pulls you out of the home, gives them
so
access.
There's fear and concern for the home, or it could be fear and concern for a family member. In a previous show, we talked about the grandparent scam, where they pose as your grandson or your granddaughter, seeing that they need help, they're in trouble, they've been arrested, and they need you to wire money to them to get out of this trouble. So now you have fear for the safety of a loved one.
And people are good at ascertaining the information perhaps that they need in order to
Yeah,
feed
I
it
think
to
that's
you.
one of the things that they use information that's out there already or that you might accidentally provide to build that fear.
Or like say the scam with the car accident. You know, my friend has been bleeding. They're playing on your, you know, your care for others. You know,
Sure.
and I just need to use your phone. That's all I need. So what could be wrong with just letting them use your phone if your friend is bleeding, you know, bleeding to death? And they're always saying death and fire, destruction. And so they're playing on the raw emotions that you would have, and they're pushing you to the edge to make a quick decision and, you know, act quickly.
We've also talked about some of the email and the dating line services, the scams. Apparently there's a fear of loneliness there. Let's talk about what happens when somebody is caught up in this dating
Yeah, well,
scam.
you know, I think, well, just taking a step back, the reason why seniors are targeted is because, you know, they have cash on them. They don't have like big bills to pay for anymore in terms of like a mortgage or for other kids to pay for. They're retired, so they're available when the scam artists try to contact them. And the third one is that they're lonely. So when they are actively trying to seek companionship through an online dating site, you know, there's already this level of trust that they're putting out there, hoping that, you know, that they're going to meet the one because they're lonely, this fear of being alone. And to meet someone who all of a sudden understands them, who can relate to them, who, you know, they can converse with, and now they have some other person in their life that they can talk to and trust.
And it can happen even at their favorite diner. You know, we know about the widow that is sitting and eating alone, the same location, the same diner every day for breakfast, and suddenly, you know, the young woman comes up and becomes the friend, and day after day they share information. She may share some affection, a hug or holding hands, might start doing a favor for him, helping him with his health care, whatever it might be, and then turns into the sweetheart scam. You know, suddenly she has much more needs, usual financial. So it can happen over on the online dating, it can happen face to face. And Jim's talked to the victims of those sweetheart scams where, you know, even after it's completely exposed, hundreds of thousands of dollars later, the elderly gentleman just still refuses to believe that she didn't love him.
But you end up with, you know, the current thing now is that there's 78.4 million or 78 million plus people are baby boomers, and we're going to be retiring in the next 10 to 15 years. And as Eric and Katie have said, all that money that was in investments and everything else is now going to go into liquidity. So the bad guys are looking at that. And then as we get older, our mate or our spouse has passed away. So we're basically alone in our house. Our kids may have grown and moved away. So any kind of conversation or personal contact, that's what these bad guys are preying upon. They're trying to get next to you, and, you know, I'm the only one that's going to talk to you. There's nobody else available.
At the Senior Academy, I always try to let the seniors know one of the precautions that you can take as an individual is to have a lot of different levels of friendship and relationships where, you know, you may have friends from church, or you may have friends from a senior club, you may have some family, so that there's different people that are involved in your lives that, you know, if one area starts to turn a little bit questionable, there's still other areas where you turn to find out, you know, is what's happening to me right? To be able to check with different people. It's important to have those different types of relationships.
And it's not going to hurt with all the, I know we've talked about it before, but these social sites and some of the online stuff that's available to you. If you come in contact with some people and you think there might be something strange, it doesn't take much to vet them. You know, if they said they went to a certain school, a lot of yearbooks are now online. They say they went to a certain college. You know, yearbooks are online again, you know, and they were in the chess club. Photos are out there. It doesn't, you don't have to hire a private investigator. Just a little bit of checking can verify some of the stuff that they're telling you. It doesn't, it's not really hard at all.
And then for the senior also, I think in terms of information, just don't put all the information out there for everyone to see. You know, be careful about who they friend online. Make sure they actually know them in real life, because you could create a fake profile. Just because you met someone briefly doesn't mean all of a sudden you can let them have access to your online profile. And just be careful about the type of information you put on there. In terms of, don't put your date of birth, don't put where you live, or your address or your telephone number, because then it just makes it easier for the scam artists to contact you.
And watch what you say. Watch what you say when you are talking to people. Just because you've just met this person, there's no need to go into your whole life and, you know, and give them everything that they need right up front. We're not saying be close-lipped, but as it progresses with this person, just watch out, like, are you giving out information and you're not getting anything in return? That type of thing. It should be an ebb and flow, and we've all had friends and we all know how friendships work, but is this a right friendship? And we're not saying to be paranoid, but we're also saying just be cautious, be careful, and if there seems to be something wrong, start doing your homework and start looking at people, start doing a little background checking.
Have a plan.
Have a plan.
How you're going to go ahead and start a relationship and continue the relationship.
So a lot of these scams are basically done because of the state of mind. They're basically successful because of the state of mind
Yes.
of people. Is that pretty much what you found?
The best example would be like if you're buying a car. He wants to put you in the most expensive car. So, and you'd like to be in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start being aware of what's going on and
Yes.
how people are going to look at your state of mind.
Yes.
Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Bye-bye, Tyler.
Bye-bye, Tyler.
Dear, it's time for serious talk
Oh?
about my daycare. When I started out, it was just to help the neighbors. But lately, it's getting to be a real handful. I need some help.
What can I do?
I need advice on more space, a loan,
What about incorporating?
and insurance.
Wait, I know who we can call.
Times like this require sound advice. Your lawyer can help. A message from the Illinois State Bar Association.
It's your fault! Never! Mister!
Over and over,
Come on! It's our Leave me alone! Shut up! Out!
time and again,
No! Drive me nuts! Shut up! You're the dumbest
generation after generation.
I hate you! I hate you too!
Isn't it time we stop the cycle? Now.
I hate you! I hate you!
Stop adult violence. Teach kids peace. A message from the Illinois State Bar Association.
Good evening and welcome back to Illinois Law. Our topic this evening is the psychology of scams. We've been discussing the schemes that are played against innocent people and the psychology that goes along with those scams, both from the standpoint of the victim and from the standpoint of the con artist. We've discussed a couple of things that lead people to get caught into these scams: age, loneliness, speed, urgency, fear. What about just the simple greed of the victim?
Well, I think a good example of the greed is with the pigeon drop. And when you actually see a lot of money right in front of you, and to quickly just kind of talk about what happens is someone approaches you, a complete stranger, and shows you an envelope or a pocket full of a lot of money, many, many bills, and they've found it or there's some big story behind it, and they'd like to share it with you if it turns out that it doesn't belong to anyone, and it all turns out you're going to have to put up some good faith money to show that, you know, you're a partner in this. And as crazy as it sounds, it continues to happen. And I have an example of one of our senior academy graduates was a victim and didn't do a police report until she finally called me about a week later. She was so embarrassed, but what she said to me was, I only had a few more house payments to go and my home would have been paid off. And as I looked at that envelope, all I thought was, I can pay off my house and give it to my kids. And that's what I've always wanted. And so that's what she saw. It was that money that she needed and that's greed.
Well, the lottery apparently is another situation where the greed of the victim is more than likely part of what's going on
Excuse me.
here.
You didn't buy a ticket. It's from a foreign country you've never been to, and $500,000, and all I have to do is give up $3,900 for taxes and handling fees. The other thing is the sweepstakes entry. You know, never heard of the company, but somehow I managed to win the sweepstakes, and all it is $14 charged to my credit card. So yeah, there's a little bit of greed, you know, and it's the, you know, the truck pulls up next to you and says, hey, I got a couple of TVs here I'm selling for half price, you know, and you pay your money, and all of a sudden you get home, you open up the box, and it's a couple of bricks inside a TV box, you know. So yeah, there's a little bit of greed there.
Yeah, and Gilda, I think the opposite of the greed is the charity, you know, where they think they're donating to a charity of a worthwhile cause that gets solicited. It's something that sounds familiar, like the Fraternal Order of Police of the town that they live in, and they want to give money to that cause, but it's a fake charity, and now they just gave their money away to the scam artist.
What can people do? What kind of reporting process should they go through if, in fact, they feel they're being targeted or if they've been targeted?
Well, I think the most important thing is to do a police report, and some of those scams that we've heard about, the door-to-door, someone approaching you in a parking lot, anytime that whether you've been a victim or not, it's still just as important if you weren't victimized to let the police know. They can look for a pattern, they can look for an area where a group is working. If you don't report, if you're too embarrassed to make that report, you have to think about all the other people that will be victimized.
And that's a very good point, the embarrassment, Katie.
And they are for seniors, and really any age. None of us want to think that we weren't smart enough to see something and to be taken, right? But
well,
we
like
can
my
all.
one victim, $400,000 in a sweetheart scam. Went and talked to him. He wouldn't give us any information. We knew who the offender was, but if he doesn't help us, you know, with identifying her and how much money and how this happened, we can't do anything.
So this is someone that had been taken for a sum of money from someone,
from a girlfriend,
from the sweetheart girlfriend, and you know, he wouldn't help us, and it was basically embarrassment. He didn't want his friends to know.
Yeah, and going back to the psychology of it, I mean, the fear that if I report this, you know, people are going to think, or my family is going to think that I can't live independently anymore, that they're going to put me in a home or take away my independent living and my take away my freedom if I report it, and they shouldn't be afraid of that.
But if you look at the psychology of it, the psychology is basically just an expansion of you were dating and your boyfriend would tell you a story, or you know, I'll take you here someplace. Now you just expand upon it where somebody is taking you for money. The embarrassment level is there, but again, like Katie said, if you don't report it, what's to stop that person from moving to your neighbor or moving to somebody down the block or some other relative that you have? By not reporting it, you're just letting this person continue to go on and just continue to rip off more and more people.
And in the situation where we've got an elder or an elderly person, what can family members do if they feel that the elderly person has encountered this type of scam artist? Eric, you were talking about the magazines, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you know, if the adult children come into their parents' home and all of a sudden they see you know, a stacks of magazine subscriptions, that should be an automatic red flag that, hey, something is going on with my parents that they're not telling me about. Or, you know, ask to start seeing their checking account statements to see, you know, what type of transactions they've been doing. Because sometimes they'll just be like, oh, what are you doing?
Why does Dad have 8 credit cards? You know.
Or I can't come over, don't come over tonight because, you know, even though that's your weekly scheduled, you know, meeting time, don't come over because I have someone here. I was like, well, who do you have over?
And have open conversations about it, even before. I mean, to be able to share information with your mom or your dad or your grandpa or your grandma, things that you know about, things that are happening in the news, these scams, these cons. It can happen to any age. It can be much more traumatic for an older person. If they lose their nest egg because they've sent it off to get the grandson out of jail, they're not going to be able to recoup that money like a younger adult would be able to. They can't go out and start a new career. They can't continue working and getting that paycheck every 2 weeks. they're only going to get their Social Security or whatever the check is. The nest egg's gone. In the case with the sweetheart scam, the home is gone. Car loans are taken out in their name. They're responsible for it, and there's no way to ever come back from that.
Yeah. If you are the child of an adult who's been taken in these scams, one of the things we recommend is don't become confrontational with the parent, because all you're going to do is drive a wedge, and the parent's going to become defensive and say that, you know, it's none of your business, get out of here. If you start talking with your parents early enough and say these scams are out there, these things are happening, I think that goes a long way to saying, number one, stopping it. But if it does occur, it makes it that less, you know, confrontational. And some of the things that we tell people is if you feel that your parents are starting to decline in their memory, decline in their ability to make decisions, two-party signature checks. Remove a lot of the expensive items from the house, put them in a safe deposit box, put them in self-storage. Remove all the credit cards from the house. Have the credit card statement sent to your address, you know, because if all of a sudden you're looking at the bill and why is he charging stuff here when he doesn't even leave the house during the week? And that way you have a little bit more control over it. You can contact some of the bills that he pays, you know, and set up alerts. If something happens out of the ordinary, I want to be contacted. Go to the bank and advise them, you know, that I think my father's declining, and, you know, if somebody shows up with him for large amounts of cash, you know, could you please notify me before this happens? Yeah. And there's some paperwork that you're going to have to do, and maybe you might have to involve a lawyer, you know, setting up some of these procedures. But just simple little things like that can really slow down the hemorrhaging of money and might even be able to save their nest egg so nothing happens before that.
It's definitely a lot better to catch it early on than later when, you know, most of the money's gone already. But if you look at the statements, all of a sudden you notice your parent is, you know, getting charged for a car note, and you're like, what's going on? And it turns out that the scam artist, and we had helped one family, the scam artist, you know, took the senior out of the home. They were suffering from, you know, mild dementia. Took the senior out of the home, took him to a dealership, had them co-sign for the car, you know, because they befriended them, saying they needed the vehicle to help them out. And even though it says like so-and-so person is going to own the car, they didn't realize that by co-signing, they're the ones responsible for the car note.
But you've given some excellent tips for prevention. What else can people do to just protect themselves, their personal safety at home?
One of the things I recommend is, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is stop and take a breath. The only thing that should make you act urgently is having a massive heart attack or having a heart attack. Just take a breath, stop, think about what's going on. You know, wait a second, why's my grandson calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning? You know, some emergency. Hold on a second, what's the number where you're at? Well, I don't have a phone number. Well, call me back in 5 minutes and let me pick up the other phone and see if my grandson is really there. Does it sound like your grandson? The reason they're calling at 3 o'clock in the morning is they're waking you out of a sleep to catch you off guard. Somebody shows up at your door. I'm from the utility. I'm from the gas company. Okay, can I see your ID? Don't open up the door. Can I see your ID? A very simple thing, if you think about it. Where's your truck? Is it out at the curb? You know, well, your house is going to catch on fire. Well, I better call the fire department now. Pick up the phone and say, have you guys heard about any fires in the area? Is there any electrical problems? No. Could you send the police over here? And that's the biggest thing, is report it, like Katie said. Report it. That way we know who's in the area. That way we know what scams are coming up. And that way we can start to get ahead of this.
And important to have a plan and then follow through on the plan. So, you know, if your plan is that you are never going to open the front door, then don't open that front door no matter how fast the knock, no matter where they say they're from. Don't pick up the phone. Don't say yes to anything over the phone. Don't hire a door-to-door salesman. And know that ahead of time so that you are confident in what you're saying to them, because no matter how you say no thank you, they'll often come back at you with more answers, more offers, more whatever. So,
well, like in the case of the my friend is bleeding to death from the car accident. You mean you're not going to help me? You're going to let him die?
Yeah.
And stick to your plan. No, I'll call 911. You go out there and stop the bleeding then here.
Yep.
You know.
We tell folks just hang up if they call on the phone, or don't even talk to them. Don't
hang
be like,
up.
hey,
don't
I saw the State Bar Association show and they told me this is a scam, for shame, because you're talking to them. And that's what they want you to do, because you might accidentally give out more information.
Right.
Well, this has been excellent. I hope that people understand the psychology of the scam and that they take preventive measures to prevent themselves from getting caught up in the scam. I thank you so much for your expertise.
Well, thank
and I
you.
appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Gilda.
Thank you.